move on to the SDS overview. I will present you the actual IDE that you've already seen, obviously. So the first thing to know that is very useful is most of the SDS functionalities are encapsulated in those toolbars here that you have on the top, and also in the SDS menu. So you would normally find everything you need there. So the first thing you want to look for is the documentation. The documentation is quite complete. So you have the SDS documentation library. This library includes the developer's guide. So this contains all the description of Eclipse, all the preference pages, the wizards, everything is documented there. So every SDS feature is present there. And you also have in this library the tutorial that we're going to use a bit later. So all the examples and the troubleshootings for the examples are present in there. Just to show you, I'll click on this link. So it will open in a web browser the documentation library. If you click on the description, you have the technical product description of SDS, what it does, and a sample Windows client description that we're going to see later on. In the operation and maintenance, we have the tutorial, the developer's guide, some common signaling flow when you use the ICP API, and also some communication flow when you use the client utility I was talking about previously for feature phones. The client utility is based on a free GSR 281 API. GSR 281 is the GSR defining the standard client API for Java Micro Edition for client development. Since it was not released before, we built it on top of like a beta API at the stage it was before. Then in the configuration you have some optional ICP parameter list that you want to make a consult a bit later on when you have a more advanced case, and the glossary of terms used in the documentation. So this is the documentation library for the SDS. I will dismiss this window and go back to Eclipse, where see as well that we have the SIP Servlet API specification. This is the API that you use when you develop on the server side. So if you are familiar with web servlet, you know that you have an HTTP servlet API that you use to develop your application. So the same exists with SIP, SIP being the protocol used for the signaling in 3G networks. So this is a reference to the API for convenience if you want to see what is available and how to use the API. And then we have the ICP API JavaDoc. This JavaDoc is for the IMS client platform that is used to develop the client application. This is a high-level API based on use cases more than on technical stuff. So it's an API that allows you to create a client and then start sessions and sharing information, doing chats, sending files, stuff like that. And finally, you have the IJCU API JavaDoc. Again, this is the documentation of the API based on a pre-GSR 281 API. Again, it's an high-level API, but this one is standardized in a GSR. It can be used for Java Micro Edition. So this is the SDS documentation. Everything being bundled in Eclipse. I will skip the Eclipse presentation because you guys are familiar with it. So there's no need to present this one. So I will move on to the actual SDS components. So we split the functionalities is basically in two. We have the client and we have the server. So on the server part, those options on top are SDS perspectives that are available. So the first one is the provisioning to define the data that is going to be used in the HSS. I will explain that a bit later on. You have a visual traffic flow viewer. We have a visual network that you can control your node from. And we have an automated testing framework. that you can use to verify the behavior of your application and to ensure that you don't break anything when you develop new features. We also have an SDS test agent. The test agent is used to build SIP messages that you can forge and then send to your application to verify their functionality. This is a tool that you will use most likely at the beginning of your development to verify the behavior of your application. And then you have the actual nodes. You have the CSCS that you can start, the DNS, and the POC server. The CSCS is typically the point of contact in an IMS network. So all the clients send the messages to this network node, and this network node is responsible of a couple of things that we have implemented and simulated. It's not fully compliant to the spec, but what is implemented is usually compliant to the spec. So this guy receives the messages from the client, and it's responsible of figuring out if this message should be dispatched to SIP containers or not. And if the message is meant to be sent to a SIP container, it will send it to the SIP containers, and then get back either the response or the same message if the application did not do anything with it, and it will finally route it on the network so the message continues its destination up to the receiver. And we have a DNS server. This is a standard DNS. It's actually Bind that we embedded in Eclipse. And we have the POC server that is used to do push-to-talk over cellular functionality, commonly known as WeShare. So this allows you to share files within a circuit switch call. So this is for the server part. And then on the client part, you have some other options. You have the ICP installation in both the Symbian emulator or a Symbian device. Then you have a PEP. PEP is a Prism Enhanced Phone Book. This is a bit of a prototype of an application to manage where you can add buddies and groups and see which applications they are able to use and launch your application from that GUI. Have the capability to start the Symbian emulator as we did previously. And you also have the menus to install the clients you develop either in Windows or in the Symbian emulator, as well as uninstalling it from the Symbian emulator. Note that there is no uninstall for Windows because it's very simple. What you need to do is basically delete the installation file. And finally, you have the option to create a sys file for your application. A sys file being the file that is going to be deployed on the target phone. This is the format required for the target phone. And finally, you have the About SDS. This one gives you the version, the actual version, and the license you use. And there you also have the URL to the support mailbox, and also the Ericsson Mobility World website. I greatly encourage you to use the Ericsson Mobility World forum when you have questions. You can prefer this medium over the SDS support mailbox. The reason is that when you encounter problems, most likely you're not the first one to encounter it, so maybe the solution is already there, and if not, the discussions that will go on in the forum will benefit others most likely. So the preferred channel is the forum on the Ericsson Mobility World website, or if you have very specific issues, technical stuff when you try to install the software, and you judge it's very specific to your case, then you can direct your questions to the SDS support mailbox.